Let's go! Let's video!
So the Redmi Note 10 and Redmi Note 10 Pro are Xiaomi's new affordable mid-range smartphones. And I mean, if you're familiar with the Note 10 or the Redmi Note lineup, right, you know that for the longest time they've always been the smartphone to buy if you have around 1,000 ringgit. And you know, they've since been like usurped by people like Poco, which is also actually still Xiaomi lah. But now they're back with two brand new and really compelling offerings. So these launched in Malaysia last week, but I haven't had a chance to check them out until now. So let's get to the unboxing. So which one you want to start first? I think we start with the small one first. Okay, we'll start with the Redmi Note 10. Oh, straight away you see the smartphone. So this has been unboxed before already, obviously, but we put it back in. So this is the device. This is the Redmi Note 10. And then underneath here you've got this thing, which is where you hold the phone. And then I guess in here you've got a SIM eject tool. You've got a case, and that's pretty much it. Underneath you get a charging brick. Wow! Apple also don't give you this, you know. And then this charging brick is 33-watt charging brick. Pretty nice. Okay, and then on top of that you also have this cable, which is a USB-C cable. Okay, and that's pretty much it. You don't get anything else. There's no like fancy stickers or whatever, but you know, it's an entry-level smartphone. It is to be expected. Very basic unboxing, but it's all you need. Moving on, let us check out this one. This is the Note 10 Pro. You can immediately tell which is the more pro smartphone or the more expensive smartphone, because remember that one you open up and it was just the Redmi phone. This one got designed by Redmi. So this is like a little case. You lift this up, then you get the smartphone underneath. So in here, I guess you have the same stuff. Oh, I guess our SIM eject tool is missing, but you will get a SIM eject tool lah. You get a SIM eject tool, you get a jelly case, some documentation, and that's pretty much it. And then underneath you have the smartphone. So you have the device here. This is the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And yeah, it looks pretty similar, but we'll touch on the smartphones a little bit later. What else do we get in the box? Oh, so you got your own dedicated divider. And then of course you still get a charging brick, which is also 33 watts. So that's pretty nice. Same charger across the board. And as usual, another USB-C cable. Same thing. So as far as accessories, you don't get more stuff, but you get a slightly more premium unboxing experience. Alright, enough with the box. Let's talk about the smartphones. Alright, so in front of me I have the two Redmi smartphones, and they are incredibly similar. Okay, so you've got this one, which is the Note 10, the slightly smaller one, and you've got this one, which is the Note 10 Pro. So as you can tell by the design, they're very inspired by the Mi 11, which I mean, I kind of dig. I didn't think that the Mi 11 had an ugly design, and in fact, I even kind of liked it because it was like quite iconic, you know. So this one is like, they just took it and make it like a bit more landscape. So the Pro has a slightly thicker camera bump over there, whereas the non-Pro has a slightly more flush camera bump. But let's turn them on now. Oh, Redmi smartphone! Jajang! These are the two Redmi Note 10 smartphones, and you know, they are pretty similar, but as you can clearly tell, one is slightly bigger than the other. So on the Redmi Note 10, you get a slightly more watered down smartphone compared to the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and you can, I mean, it's quite obvious lah, okay? So on the Redmi Note 10, you get a 6.43-inch AMOLED display. So it's nice that it's still AMOLED display, but this is a 60Hz panel, so you're not getting like super smooth. Refresh rate is pretty much, you know, box standard smartphone screen, which isn't bad. I mean, an AMOLED panel is still like very contrasty, and a lot of people like that look. Plus, you know, blacks are really deep black, which is great. Over on the Note 10 Pro, however, you're getting a slightly larger 6.67-inch display, and this one is also an AMOLED panel, also pushes Full HD+, but now has a 120Hz refresh rate. Now, I don't know any other smartphone around this price point that has a 120Hz AMOLED display, and I gotta say, I'm very impressed. But you know, holding them both up side by side, they don't look too different. I think they're both really nice screens. They're both really crisp, and they've got good colors and stuff, but one is just way smoother than the other because of the refresh rate, and the Pro screen gets just a little bit brighter than the non-Pro version, but I think if you're not using them side by side, you won't really notice like a big difference lah. But the Note 10 Pro does have a couple more benefits. It supports HDR10, and it also has Corning's Gorilla Glass 5 on top to, you know, get that extra layer of protection. On the inside, you're also getting a slightly different configuration. So on the Redmi Note 10, you're getting a Snapdragon 678 processor, while the Redmi Note 10 Pro gets a Snapdragon 732G processor. There's also a slight difference in memory configuration. So the Redmi Note 10 comes with two variants. You have either 4 gigs of RAM with 64 gigs of storage, or 6 gigs of RAM with 128 gigs of storage. On the Redmi Note 10 Pro, storage is set standard at 128 gigs, and you can choose between either 6 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM. The Redmi Note 10 Pro also has like a slightly bigger battery, so it has a 5020 mAh battery, while the Redmi Note 10 only has a 5000 mAh battery. So I don't know, like in practical sense, how big of a difference that makes, but it's just like, you know, just a little bit better lah, because it's the Pro, right? So yeah, you get a slightly bigger battery, but they both support 33-watt fast charging via USB-C, which is nice. As far as build is concerned, I'd have to say that they both feel pretty similar. I think maybe the Pro feels a little bit more rigid, a little bit more premium, slightly nicer heft to it, and the camera bump, like, it doesn't look as like the sectioning makes sense lah. So this one has like a step ladder, like it feels slightly more well put together. I don't know if it's because I know that this is the Pro and this isn't, but yeah, it's like slightly nicer. The buttons are very similar though, and they both have this side mounted fingerprint scanner, which they call it, I think they call it the arc fingerprint scanner. So what that means is basically like the fingerprint scanner, instead of being sunken into the frame, is like slightly on the frame and it's curved along with the frame. For starters, I'm not a big fan of having the fingerprint scanner on the side of the smartphone. I like either in front or at the back, or, you know, Face ID, I don't know. Actually, no, in a world with masks, Face ID not good. But, you know, it's a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, and I know a lot of people do like it, and it can be pretty reliable. One thing I do notice though is that the frame, they're also trying to do that whole like bend the frame around the buttons thing with the Redmi devices, which I guess is kind of nice, but this is normally what you'd find on like really premium smartphones because their frames are really so thin. This one, the frames are really so thick, like why do you want to do that? I think just want a pattern only lor. But being affordable smartphones, you still get the kind of features that you'd like to see at this price point. So for starters, you get a headphone jack. So the Pro's headphone jack's on the top of the smartphone, while the other one, the non-Pro version, is on the bottom. But they both have IR blasters here on the top, so if you want to hijack like the Mamat TV, now that you can go Mamat already, you can still do that with either of these smartphones. Alright, let's test out the speakers though. I'm curious if there is going to be any difference between them. Alright, so we'll start with the Pro.
Do you smell that? That's the smell of a brand new gaming phone. It is ROG Phone 5 time.
That was pretty good. Definitely stereo speakers, so you've got a top firing one and a bottom firing one. And they sound like not bad lah, especially considering like these are like 1,000 ringgit smartphones. That's like nice. I really love the development of stereo speakers and how often you find them even on cheap smartphones. But let's see if there's any difference between this one and the Pro version, the non-Pro version. Actually, I said the correct thing. The non-Pro version, the Redmi Note 10, that sounds like it's a little bit more biased towards the bottom firing speaker and a little bit less balanced than the Pro version, but I don't know if it's like, is my ears playing tricks on me or what, but as far as like volume and how full they sound, I think they're very comparable. I think as a content consumer, you will be happy with either of these, and you know, having the option to stick in a pair of wired headphones to take your audio experience to the next level, yeah, that's actually a great option. So yeah, good speakers overall, I think. Next, the big difference between these two smartphones are their cameras. So as you can probably tell by the phones just being on the table, there is a big difference in terms of just camera bump size. So if you don't like a phone that rocks on the table, then I think you will prefer the Redmi Note 10 a bit more because it's more steady. But on the Pro, like look at that, like it's crazy, like it goes it goes absolutely nuts because the camera bump is way bigger, and there's a reason for that because these are two different camera modules. So on the Redmi Note 10, you're getting a 48 megapixel quad camera setup. So that is a 48 megapixel wide camera, that is an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera. You also get a 2 megapixel macro camera and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. On the Redmi Note 10 Pro, you're getting a 108 megapixel quad camera setup. So that is a 108 megapixel wide angle camera. You get an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. So it's slightly higher resolution macro camera and much higher resolution main camera. Up front, you're getting a 13 megapixel selfie shooter on the Redmi Note 10 and a 16 megapixel selfie shooter on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Now, I didn't actually get the chance to shoot photos with this smartphone yet, but my colleague Matnep, he managed to shoot some photos, and I'm going to steal his photos and show you guys what they look like. I've had a look at them, and honestly, they don't look like super different or anything like that, and I think they're actually like very comparable, especially when it comes to like daylight shots. The 108 megapixel camera has maybe a little bit more detail, maybe in low lights, just a slight bit more, but I think overall, unless you're like really pixel peeping, they look very comparable lah, which I mean, kudos lah, as far as that is concerned. So yeah, so because I stole these photos from Matnep, please don't tell him. Let's keep this as our little secret. Oh, and I completely forgot to check the SIM card. Is it a dual SIM tray? I mean, got microSD expansion. That's the question. So this is the Redmi Note 10. Oh, so the Redmi Note 10 actually has a triple tray slot. So that means it'll take dual SIM and also a microSD card. What about the Pro version? Oop. Also the same thing, 3-card tray, will take 2 SIM cards and 1 microSD card. Nice. One other difference that I actually haven't mentioned between the Redmi Note 10 and the Redmi Note 10 Pro is that the Redmi Note 10 doesn't have NFC, while the Redmi Note 10 Pro has NFC. So if NFC is important to you, then you know the Pro is really the device that you want. Now let's talk about pricing. So these two smartphones are in a very sensitive area of the market where you know every sort of 100 or 50 ringgit really matters, and I gotta say, looking at the price tags, they're like pretty good value for money. But then again, it's Xiaomi lah. Xiaomi is always the best Pang Lang Tang smartphone, so they're not gonna overprice their especially their affordable mid-range devices. So on the Redmi Note 10, the two versions, so if you want 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, that is 699 ringgit. For the more storage and more RAM variant, 6 gigs of RAM with 128 gigs of storage, that will be priced at 799 ringgit. And then if you want the Redmi Note 10 Pro, you're going to have to pony up a little bit more because the base models with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, that will be priced at 999 ringgit, so sliding in just below that 1000 ringgit price point. And then if you want like the all-out 8 gigs of RAM version, well, that will be priced at 1099 ringgit. So with price tags like that, you know, these two phones, they're going straight after the Poco X3 NFC, which was, you know, the king of this segment for pretty much the longest time. And, you know, looking at the specs, they are pretty comparable, though I have to say that these are probably better, like a more modern update over the Poco X3 NFC, especially with that 108 megapixel camera and the 120Hz AMOLED screen. So yeah, if you're looking for a smartphone for around 1,000 ringgit, I think you really can't go wrong with either of these devices. At least that's my recommendation right now. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the Redmi Note 10 and Redmi Note 10 Pro? Do you think the difference between the Pro is enough to justify that 200 ringgit price gap? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you already bought one, you know, how are you enjoying it so far? Wait, have you even gotten it? I don't know. Tell me in the comment section below. Before I end this video though, I would like to shout out a few comments from the previous video. So these are from the Mi 11 hands-on that I did a while back. So Colby says, ooh, Rory speaks Cantonese one. A bit lah. I know most of the curse words because of Zach. Actually no, not because of Zach. I already knew them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You asked me to order food, still okay. But anything more than that, better don't lah. So Landon says, getting better and better in the first-hand review segment, Rory. Like how the flow and great vids shot for the scene transition to. Keep it up, yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comment a lot. We've been trying very hard to make our videos better. So yeah, your feedback is greatly appreciated. And finally, Mr. Darnit says, boring shallow review. Just same as other review video, which is the same review on screen and cameras. Why don't you do UI review as well? How much ads in it? Is this annoying for daily usage? Functions that useful? Okay, first of all, it wasn't a review, it was a hands-on, okay? Hands-on. Hands-on. That means you just got the phone, spent like maybe a few hours with it, and then we push out some content just to give you a little bit of early buying advice. So that is different from like a review where we've used it like as our daily driver for many weeks. So yeah, it's not a review. As far as like how many ads there are in Xiaomi phone, I mean, you can turn them off. We actually have a guide, so you should definitely check that out. So if you're worried about that, that's what you should do. Okay, that's it for the comments. If you want me to respond to more of your comments in the next video, leave them all here, okay? And I'll respond. Alright, until the next time, I'm Rory. Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you to subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, click on the notification bell icon, like and follow us on YouTube. Our home will be on searchingshow.com. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you so much. I'm Rory. I'll see you next time. Bye.